perpetual revolt against authority. He got himself expelled from cadet training by destroying his rifle. I love the wily rebel who threw his rifle in the river, and the little boy in you who wanted to drive steam trains, were the first lines of the first poem I wrote to him in 1987. Robert had a following in Ireland, a country he came to love with his first serious journalistic assignment, covering the troubles in Belfast for the Times. Though he was lucid about the excesses of the IRA, he saw Northern Catholics as underdogs and victims. He would later compare their status to that of Shia Muslims in Lebanon and Iraq. Robert's doctoral thesis at Trinity College, Dublin, became, in time of war, the definitive book on Irish neutrality during the emergency, as World War II is known in Ireland. He bought the cottage opposite Finnegan's Pub and Maeve Binchy's house in Sorrento Road, Dalkey, before I met him. We later built our dream home, imitating the style of the Ottoman mansions that adorn Beirut, overlooking the sea in Dalkey. When in 1976, the foreign editor of the Times asked Robert if he wanted to go to Beirut to cover the Lebanese civil war, Robert said he felt like an Arab king being offered a country by Winston Churchill. The assignment changed the course of his life. For the next 45 years, 15 of them with me, Robert interviewed generals and guerrillas, wounded civilians, and their tormentors. He knew more about the region's history than many of its inhabitants did. He accurately predicted its future. When Anwar Sadat signed the Camp David Accords with Israel, Robert wondered in print if the Egyptian autocrat had signed his own death warrant. He saw how Israel's 1982 invasion of Lebanon radicalized and Islamicized the region. He warned that the evacuation of Palestinian fighters after the siege of West Beirut left women and children defenseless, a premonition of the Sabra and Shatila massacres, which he covered with award-winning eloquence. When Yasser Arafat concluded his ill-fated Oslo peace accords with Israel in 1993, Robert explained to my naive bosses at Time magazine why it could not work. He knew that Israel would not give East Jerusalem back to the Palestinians or stop seizing Arab land in the West Bank, and that the Palestinians' right of return, as consecrated in UN General Assembly Resolution 194, was an existential and irreconcilable issue for both parties. Under the Oslo Accords, he said, Israel would turn the PLO into its policeman. He predicted that the 2003 US and British invasion of Iraq would destroy Iraq and hand it on a platter to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Robert's message never varied. He regarded war as the total failure of the human spirit. He railed against the double standards that led journalists and politicians to regard violence by Muslims as terrorism, while Israel, the US, and NATO were never labeled terrorist for the civilians they slaughtered. He protested endlessly that the Palestinians were not responsible for the Holocaust, but that Arabs needed to admit that the genocide had happened. He denounced those who equated criticism of Israeli actions with anti-Semitism. He said every war contained the seeds of the next one. Robert's immense physical courage was matched by his moral courage. He braved hate mail and condemnation by media pundits and government officials. Although he was not alone in criticizing the tyranny and corruption of Arab despots, Robert was far more daring than most of his colleagues in investigating the criminal ravages of US and Israeli military offensives. He never forgot that the Armenian Holocaust was the first genocide of the 20th century. He refused to allow the dispossession of the Palestinians to be erased from history. In the Middle East, too, Robert had a following. Arab universities invited him to lecture. Diplomats and Arab officials were eager to meet him. When Vintage Books republished T.E. Lawrence's 7 Pillars of Wisdom in 2008, they asked Robert, perhaps the Englishman most closely associated with the region since Lawrence of Arabia, to write the preface. Lawrence wrote, "The people of England have been led into Mesopotamia into a trap from which it will be hard to escape with dignity and honor. This was," Robert wrote, "exactly what happened to us in Iraq at the time of the 2003 invasion." Robert understood Europe and its history equally well. Amid the euphoria over the fall of the Berlin Wall and the disintegration of the Warsaw Pact, he told me, "Watch out, I know what Eastern Europe..."